My name is Danielle Padovano. I'm a graduate student on the women's basketball team, and I'm president of the Student Athlete Advisory Council. I'd like to start out by congratulating you all on your academic achievements. It is my privilege to introduce our guest speaker, Joan Cronan, Women's Athletic Director Emeritus at the University of Tennessee. Mrs. Cronan's passion, dedication, and leadership have been instrumental in paving the way for women's athletics. Mrs. Cronan also dedicates her life to continuing to make progress for all student athletes today. Mrs. Cronan began her career in collegiate athletics as a coach at the University of Tennessee. She was then named athletic director at the College of Charleston in South Carolina. In just 10 years, she oversaw the growth of the women's athletics program, advancing it to become the #1 women's athletic program in the country by 1980. Mrs. Cronan then found herself back at the University of Tennessee, this time as an athletic director. Much of the University of Tennessee's successes in both athletics and academics speak volumes to her decision-making and leadership ability. She has spent years advancing our sports and making a difference in the lives of so many individuals. She has received numerous accolades and awards, including Athletic Director of the Year, the International Women's Forum's Women of Achievement Award, and top leadership positions in national sports organizations. After being at the helm of the University of Tennessee's Women's Athletic Department for 29 seasons, today she continues making a difference in the lives of student athletes across the country. While Mrs. Cronan is known for her numerous Hall of Fame inductions and awards, her real impact can be felt in the hearts of millions of female student athletes like myself and those in this room, as well as athletes all around the country who are today able to grow up with the opportunity to achieve their dream of playing the sport they love. And for that, we thank you. So without further ado, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Joan Cronan.
Thank you. It is great to be here. I will admit that this is my first time on your campus, but I understand that Father McShane says that this is his university, but New York City is your campus. Is that right? Well, I have been on your campus many times. I'm a huge New York fan and love to come to the city, but it is great to be here and be a part of this program. First of all, congratulations. What a great testament to student athletes to be here and have this many of our program part of over a 3.0. I would say, job well done. I'm excited about being with Dave Roach. As he said, he was the second coach I hired at the University of Tennessee when I went there. And I was so honored because he was a great swim coach. I know you know him as a great athletic director, but when I hired him as a swim coach, I said, we need to have one of the top programs in America. In a short period, we became #4 in the country, and we had Olympic swimmers, and he did a great job of coaching, just like it's been fun to follow his career as an athletic director. When I called Dave to offer him the job, and you guys, I think it's important that you be tough and you be great people and all of these things, but I think it's also important that you have a soft side of you. And I have to admit, one of the things that impressed me when I called Dave to offer what I considered one of the top swimming jobs in America, his wife Ann said, well, I'll have to go get him because he's up in the girls' room playing Barbies. And I thought, if I have a swim coach who could take us to the top 4 in the country and still likes to play Barbies with his daughters, that's a pretty good deal. So Dave, thank you. And he's also gone on to something that you might not know, to be president of NACDA, which is our National Athletic Directors Association. I'm having a little trouble with the mic here. It keeps going in and out. Okay, today, game day every day. We talk about getting ready. We talk about we're going to put our game face on. Well, you guys do that every day. I've written a book. It's called Sport is Life with the Volume Turned Up. The lessons that you learn from sport about life and business. And I think it's so important that you realize that you're not only playing a game, you're getting prepared for life. And that's why I love sport. I have to tell you a story. I grew up, you might know Barbara Mandrell's song that she was country before it was cool to be country. Well, I was a tomboy before it was cool for women to be in sport. And I grew up in South Louisiana. I was a tomboy. I loved to play. I put my baseball cap, my bat, and I went down to the city park to try out for Little League Baseball. Had a nice gentleman there, but he wouldn't let me play. He said, "Joan, girls don't play. You can be a manager, you can be a scorekeeper." He even got desperate and offered to let me be an assistant coach, but he wouldn't let me play. And I knew at that time that I wanted to be in a business that helped women learn to compete, because I think it's just as important for young women and young men to have that opportunity, because it does so much to prepare you. We'll try. Yeah, thank you. To prepare you for life. When I always spoke to our athletes, and we had 500 athletes at the University of Tennessee, and when I spoke to them, I told them 4 things, and I'd like to share that with you today. I told them to remember who they were and who they represented, because you are representing Fordham, and you will do that for the rest of your life, and I think that's real important. I told them that my favorite Bible verse was Luke 12:48. To whom much is given, much is required. And we were going to give them a lot, but we were going to require a lot for them to give back. I told them that the only place that success came before work was in the dictionary. And if you were going to be an athlete at this caliber of program at University of Tennessee or at Fordham, you were going to work hard. And then I told them, and this is important, we all hear people say, it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's not what you know, it's who knows you. And I think that's so important. It's not what you know, it's not who you know, but it's really important that who knows you. So when you go to breakfasts like this, when you have the opportunity to represent Fordham, remember that you're making contacts for a lifetime. Dave, and we talked a minute about Pat Summitt, and I had an opportunity to work with Pat Summitt for 30 years. The question that I got asked most as she was coaching and winning 8 national championships and being a dominant program in the game of women's basketball, the question I got asked most was, what makes Pat Summitt a great coach? And coaches, what I always said was she was a great teacher. I think the best coaches are great teachers. She was somebody who had a passion. She was somebody that had pride in what they're doing, and that's what I saw today. That's what I saw this morning, was as you stood up as the top academic leaders in your program, you have a pride, and I think that's very, very important. I think it's also so important that you be a leader. And we hear say, all the time, who's a leader? What's leadership? And we've all heard lots of definitions. But my favorite definition of a leader came from Jerry Jones, who, if you follow professional football, you know he owns the Dallas Cowboys. And I'll say right up front, and I've told him this, I really don't like Jerry Jones. The reason I don't like him is he fired Tom Landry. And I think if you look up in the dictionary and you see professional football coach, it's going to say Tom Landry. So I'm sitting with this man on a panel, and we're talking about leadership. And what he said was so important. He said, a leader is a person with a vision. And I could go along that. Almost every definition you read has that. And then he said, a leader is a person with a vision and a sphere of influence to make it happen. It goes back to it's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. And that's what you're doing as an athlete in this program. You're affecting your vision. You're affecting what you're doing and who knows you. You know, when I think about Pat, and Pat passed away this summer at an early age of Alzheimer's. And the question I've been asked so much is, what lessons did Coach Summit teach you? I worked with her for 30 years. We were best friends, we were colleagues, and had a wonderful journey. But when I sit back and I think about what lessons did Pat Summit teach me? First thing she taught me was courage. When she was diagnosed with this awful disease of Alzheimer's, she walked in my office and she said, "Joan, I've just been diagnosed with early stages dementia, Alzheimer's strength." Well, here was one of the strongest women I'd ever known telling me she has this weakness and she has this disease. And I said, "Well, Pat, you know, it says early stages." And she said, "No, that means I'm younger and it goes faster." I said, "Well, dementia sounds better than Alzheimer's." And she said, "No, we're going to tell the truth. We're going to say exactly what I said." And when she told me about what she wanted to do, she looked me straight in the eye and she said, "I thought I was going to be remembered for winning basketball games, but I hope I'm remembered for making a difference in this disease." And I'm so proud that 3 weeks ago, we opened the Pat Summit Clinic for research for Pat. And we think with the money and what we're investing, that we hope we will be able to find a cure and we'll be able to help the caretakers, because that's the toughest thing about that disease. So she taught us courage. She also taught us humility. When we got ready to have the celebration of life, I called all of our athletes, and coaches, think about this. She coached 160 young ladies during her time at Tennessee. 145 came back for that celebration of life. That means you make a difference. You make a difference in so many people's lives. Billy Graham said a coach can touch more people in 1 year than most people have a chance to do in a lifetime. So don't ever forget that, coaches. You have a huge, huge responsibility. But what I told our players that came back was, I said, in your life, and probably mine, we will never meet anybody that has more accolades and more accomplishments than Pat Summit. And I said the "and" is what's so important. And we will never meet anybody that is more humble. She was accomplished and she was humbled. And I think that's so important. The other thing she taught me was discipline. I think to be successful, you've got to discipline yourself. And I want you to remember this: discipline yourself before someone else has to. Discipline yourself. We all know when we're screwing up. We all know when we're not working hard, we're not getting all those things. Discipline yourself before someone else has to. The other thing she taught me was you win with people. You're not going to win by yourself. She had a way of saying, you know, I never scored a goal in that championship. I won because I surrounded myself with great, great people. The other thing she taught me was to set goals. I know all of you start a season and you always revamp and you always want to do this. But what I love most, when Dave Roach got up here just a minute ago, he talked about you being a student athlete. And you always have to keep that student first. It's important that you're both, but you've got to remember that you're a student athlete. And you've got to live that life. One of the best stories that I think shows how we tried to live the fact that you were students first and athletes second. One day Pat was recruiting a young lady for the basketball team, and she was from Kentucky. She was from the coal mining part of Kentucky. She was from a very poor, poor area, academically and economically. And she called me after she had visited with this young lady, and she said, Joan, I just don't know if she can fit into our group. I don't know if she has the background or can make this adjustment. Well, the AD and me said, well, how good is she? And she said she's really good, and she really wants to come. So I said, let's bring her in. And she'll visit, and we'll see how she responds to us and how she responds to her teammates. So we brought her in one Saturday. It happened to be a Saturday that we had a football game. And there was only 107,000 people running around in orange. We kind of like that color down in Tennessee. And we brought her on campus. And I will never forget that morning. I went to my office to visit with her, and standing outside of my office was a tall, attractive, blonde young lady dressed in one of the most expensive looking suits that I'd ever seen. Well, you can imagine my mind talk as I looked at her and I thought about what Pat had said about poverty and not being prepared. So as we visited, I finally said, you know, that's one of the prettiest suits that I've ever seen. She looked at me and she smiled and she said, you know, Miss Cronan, when Pat came in to visit, my mother drew a picture of the suit that Coach Summit had on. And my mother made this suit for me to come visit you. Well, gang, I'm soft-hearted. That kid was signed. She was coming. We'd already made a difference. Well, she came in and she was never the star. She was a blue-collar worker. And she made things happen. She was a good student and she was a good athlete. The middle of her junior year, we're getting ready in the midst of the SAAC competition, and it's a big-time competition. Our academic advisor, our sister, came in and said, she's struggling. It's not that she's not trying, but she's struggling. And so I called a summit conference. I called Pat and this young lady, and I called our academic advisor, and we talked about goals. That's what I'm talking about, goals. And we said, what are our goals? You're a student first, and you're an athlete second. So we decided to pull her out of practice for 3 weeks and off the road for 3 weeks. But to show her we weren't punishing her, we let her start at all the home games because she was trying. It was like she was on a treadmill and she couldn't catch up. Well, after 2 weeks, the academic advisor came back, gave me a thumbs up and said, she's doing great. So she started playing and practicing. We went to the SAAC tournament and we lost in the finals. But this young lady made the all-tournament team. And I was so proud we hadn't denied her an opportunity to be the best that she could be. Fast forward, we're at the Final Four. We're in the semifinal game, and I'm trying to be sure that everybody has their tickets and everything's happening. And all of a sudden, I go back to my room, and my phone rings. And it's this young lady. And she's calling me. And she said, Ms. Cronan, I want you to be the first one to know that UT just called, and I made the Dean's List. So she made the Dean's List. She went on to help us win a national championship, and she became the first member of her family ever to graduate from college. That's setting goals. That's why you're here today. You know how to set goals. I want to close with something, and I understand y'all got lots of great competitors. University of Dayton is one of them. If I'm thinking of my competitors, I'm going to think about Alabama and Florida and Connecticut and some of those people. But I want you to think about who your biggest competitor is. And think about why you're doing what you're doing. You're a student athlete and you're learning to compete. My competitors do more for me than my friends. My friends are too polite to point out my weaknesses, but my competitors go to great expense to tell me of them. My competitors are efficient and diligent. This keeps me alert to hold on to what I have. If I had no competitors, I would be lazy, incompetent, and complacent. I need the discipline they've enforced upon me. I thank my competitors. They've been good to me. Isn't that true? We get better because somebody else gets better. Again, I want to say congratulations. I'm so proud that you do have that student first and that athlete second. I want you to think about what your sport teaches you and how much you're learning. And I'm going to close. I'm a tennis nut, and I love to play, and I love what that sport teaches you, as all sports do, be it golf or basketball or soccer, swimming. But this is a great example. Think about in tennis and in life, it is better to serve than receive. In tennis and in life, it's better to serve than receive. So thank you for whatever sport you're doing, for serving Fordham and making a difference in this university. Thank you.